Where exactly does the race stand in a state that their candidates are spending a lot of their time this week?
Yeah, most polling has Harris up by the narrowest of margins, maybe 1 to 2 points. So within the margin of error, essentially, it could go either way. With the margin of error, it's arguable that Donald Trump actually has the lead. You could ask me this question every day from now until November 5th, and I think the answer will be the same. Either candidate could really plausibly win it. A small shift at any point right up to Election Day could really change the outcome.
Well, you start wondering what causes one campaign or the other to break out, if anything. They're both still laying out new policy proposals. Today, Kamala Harris aiming a series of proposals at young black men with business incentives, an effort to legalize cannabis on the federal level. Donald Trump continues to introduce tax deductions. They all lead us back to the economy, though, and that is the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and the economy is something that has been the top issue throughout this campaign. There's a lot of frustration still from a lot of voters about inflation, even though some of those numbers have come down more recently. They remember those early years of the Biden administration. And that's why both candidates are trying to make those working class appeals and trying to chip away, where Trump is trying to win some of those working class black and Latino voters who maybe were Democrats in the past. Harris trying to win back some of the white working class voters who have been part of the Trump base, because, as we just said, a tiny shift in any group could really make the difference.
Well, as we consider working class voters, obviously there are large populations in the Rust Belt, in the Blue Wall specifically, where it does seem Harris is targeting more of her energy, at least this week. For all of the conversation we had in the nascent days of her candidacy, which arguably we're still in, Jonathan, there was talk of an expanded map, include the Sun Belt potentially she could be competitive in. Are we reverting now?
I think the most straightforward path for Joe Biden and for Kamala Harris is winning Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those are three states that have always been close but traditionally voted Democratic. Arizona looks tough for Democrats. Georgia has only recently become competitive. North Carolina, they haven't won since Obama. So those are the three states that are the most kind of straightforward path. If she wins those, she doesn't need anything else, provided nothing else flips. And so that's the most logical path, and it appears to be the way that she's going, to be most efficient.
A couple of important events on the campaign trail, as we were just showing our viewers on Bloomberg TV. Tomorrow, Donald Trump, high noon interview right here on Bloomberg TV and radio with our editor-in-chief, John Micklethwaite. Wednesday, Kamala Harris sitting down for an interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. These are two important conversations that we'll be following closely, and we'll invite you to our special coverage tomorrow. Starts 11:30 Eastern Time, as we walk up to the interview with Donald Trump. Now, we want to turn to the Middle East, another important story we're following today with some updates. The Pentagon announcing the U.S. is sending more troops now, almost 100, along with an advanced missile defense system to Israel to help protect from attacks coming from Iran. This comes as Israel has yet to retaliate for the barrage of missiles that Iran fired earlier this month. We spoke earlier today with former NSC official Hagar Shamali on the early edition of Balance of Power.
It is something that is meant to beef up that security, to definitely send a message across the Middle East that the U.S. is going to defend Israel, is going to stand and support Israel, in case of any kind of attack. But it certainly indicates that they are expecting something and they want to be there just in case.
We're joined now by Bloomberg's Michelle Jamrisko at the table with us in Washington. Michelle, we've had a couple of updates, not only that missile defense battery, I should say, on its way to Israel with dozens of Americans who will be there to run it. But Benjamin Netanyahu, according to the Washington Post, now saying that Israel will strike the Iran military when it responds. We're not sure when that happens. And that's as opposed to oil installations or nuclear facilities. Mm-hmm. Does the Biden administration then, in fact, have some influence after all?
I mean, I think it's a stretch first to, we don't know if these are verified reports. We have to, take a look ourselves. But, and there's constantly all these, rumors flying about the private deliberations between the two leaders and the fraught relationship that they have. So that is tentative. If true, yes, that's, somewhat of a relief, I would say, for U.S. officials that were pressing that both privately and of course, as we heard from Biden in public, much to the dismay of some Israeli officials who didn't want to be instructed on how to conduct this retaliation. So it does, I think, relieve a little bit of pressure, but I think we have to be reminded that this isn't, everything is all good between the two powers. They're allies. The U.S. is at pains to continue to say, this is all for Israel's defense. As you heard from Hagar Shamali, this is to send a message in addition to actually provide the resources needed to finish this war. But, there will still be disagreements, and I think the U.S. has been honest about that even in public, that, they don't always agree and they're being candid with each other, which the subtext is, this isn't a great relationship, a warming of ties, but it is something that both sides want to move forward and finish this off.
Well, we certainly have seen a market reaction to the reporting from the Washington Post. Oil futures are down more than 4% right now. WTI lower by nearly 5 full percentage points, south of $72 a barrel once again. So when we consider the political impact here for the Biden administration, why they had been encouraging a less escalatory move from Israel, not going after energy or nuclear sites, for example, it was because of concern about how Iran could respond and disrupt potentially global energy markets, right? Or at least a factor.
And stability has been the name of the game since, a year ago when the October 7th attacks happened. The U.S. desperately just wants to bring down the temperature, and in any way we can on all of these fronts. Of course, we've got Hezbollah with defeat of Hamas, all, in the balance now. Oil is a significant portion of this story. And you can see, as you mentioned, the market reaction underscores just how sensitive these conversations are about how Israel retaliates, even if the U.S. continues to say it's justified. Yeah.